So this is my review for Lord of the Rings: The War of Rohirrim. Now I was really excited for this movie. As someone who loves the original Lord of the Rings trilogy, I'm not really big on the Hobbit movies personally, but I love the Lord of the Rings trilogy. And I think the idea of doing an anime Lord of the Rings movie could have been really cool. I know the whole story behind this movie is that they only made this movie to keep the rights, which I don't really have a problem with that. As long as the movie is great, as long as the movie is great, then I don't have a problem with that. You know, I do think there's a lot of times where studios just make movies based on like keeping rights to certain franchises, and then most of the time it does turn out to be pretty bad. I would say this turned out to be kind of in the middle for me. So let me start with the positives with this movie. I think at times the animation looks good. Not all the time. There are times where I just felt like it was a little choppy, and I get into my negatives with that. But there are times where I think it has some good animation. I think the voice acting is fine in this movie. It's like those times where I felt like the voice acting was kind of stiff. I felt like just it wasn't the best voice acting I've seen in like an anime movie. There was times where I was like the voice acting just came off a little stiff for me. But it was okay. It was so supportive voice acting. Like none of the voice acting like sounded awful to me, but none of it really stood out to me either. Some of the acts I think is good in this movie. I like some of the callbacks. There's some good callbacks. I'll get into some of the negatives though when it comes to maybe this movie doing a little bit too many callbacks at some points in the movie. I was like, okay, we didn't need to have a callback to that specific thing from the Lord of the Rings movies. I think the characters are so smart in this movie. Like overall, I like the characters, but at the same time, they want the most memorable characters, like the Lord of the Ring characters. And I do like the fact that it kind of like was maybe a little bit more of a personal story in this, with this dealing with this family, and it kind of reminded me of actually Game of Thrones a little bit. Like I didn't finish Game of Thrones, but it kind of had that vibe, like a medieval, with like a royal family where this family comes in and wants to marry the king of Rohirrim's daughter, his son, to join the family. So I like how it's kind of like a more small story in this. And I also like the fact that we got to like see some new characters in this, and that's really about the positives for me. The negatives things with this movie, like I said, with the voice acting, is fine in this movie. I think at times it does sound stiff. The voice acting, it's not terrible, but I also don't think this is one of those anime or animated movies where the voice acting like stands out when it comes to any specific performance from anybody in this movie. And even though I think the animation looks good at times, there are times where it looks choppy in this movie. Like I do feel like there are times when maybe even with the voice acting, there's times where I feel like the voice acting, like at times it feels like the voice acting is off when it comes to the actors catching up to the line. And like I said, this feel at times kind of sipped voice acting. I think there's at times when animation does look choppy, like when the backgrounds doesn't really blend in with the characters in the movie, where the backgrounds have that, I guess, 3D visuals where it just looks it doesn't blend in too well together at times. So I do feel like the animation is choppy a little bit at times. And I think they could have fussed out like some of the characters and certain story elements more in this movie. Like I said, I didn't dislike any of the characters in this movie. I just felt like I didn't really emotionally feel invested as the characters as I wanted to in this movie. Like even the relationship between the main girl when it comes to the main character, the daughter of Brian Cox, main character, the daughter of the king in this movie of Warhand's king. I think her character's name is Helen or something like that. I felt like her relationship that they showed that she had with the character Wolf, who's the son of the king that the king of Warhane kills by accident in a fight. I feel like that relationship, because they showed they were childhood friends. The character Wolf, who wants revenge against the king of Mohan for killing his father, and they're king by accident in a fight. I feel like the relationship between Wolf and the main girl in the movie, I feel like that could have been fleshed out more. You get like two flashbacks when they were kids, but it just I never really felt like the connection, like they're trying to show in this movie they used to be childhood friends, but I just never really felt like I connected or bought into it completely. Like I just feel like you could have fleshed it out a little bit more to really make me feel the emotion between these two characters had this connection when they were kids. And it just felt to me it just wasn't fleshed out enough personally in this movie. And it's the same with the main girl's two brothers. Like when they die, I just didn't really find myself caring about their characters, and that's kind of one of the issues I have with the movie is that I just never really felt like I cared about the characters. Like I think the relationship between the main girl and her father, I do think that was fleshed out enough, a good amount. I still think you could have done a little bit more there with the father and daughter relationship in this movie between the main girl and her father when he dies. Like I like the moment where he stands in front of the door to protect Wolf's men from getting inside the castle. Like I like that moment, like how he goes out. But I even with that, I felt like it could have been fleshed out a little bit more. I do think that's the strongest relationship in the movie, like emotionally wise, that I connect to the most. But I just think there was I just felt like the characters and certain story elements could have had a bit more depth to them. And there are some cliche and tropes I thought in this movie that I've seen in other anime movies. Like, there's definitely things in this movie where I was kind of like, yeah, this is kind of some tropes. I think they made, like the main girl, I think they made a little bit too perfect maybe at times. And I think you could have, like, and there's some cliches I thought I've seen in other anime movies. And I think her character could have been fleshed out a little bit more where I didn't like completely feel like I felt, like I said, completely invested in her character and her journey in this movie. And overall, I just think this is really not as good as Lord Way movies. Like it's a movie where I can tell they made this to keep the whites. And another about this movie with the animation is that the animation to me isn't like I wasn't like blown away by how the animation looked in this movie. The anime look to it where this felt kind of like something you would release straight to DVD, like like one of those DC animated movies where the animation is at times good, but it doesn't like really like I've seen better anime looking movies. Like the anime look in this doesn't like stand out to me. Like I've seen better, and just overall, it's just not as good as Lord of the Rings movies. Like for me, I think this movie had the potential to really be better than what it was. And I don't think this is a bad movie. Like I enjoyed this movie enough. I think some of the acting, like one of the other positives, I think there's some good acting in this movie. I like the acting towards the end in the third act. It has some good acting scenes with the way the animation looks when it's showing acting. But I just think there's story elements you could have fleshed out more in this movie. I think some of the relationships could have been fleshed out more. And I just think the story could have been a little bit more interesting. And there was some callbacks in this movie. I feel like, okay, you did a little bit too much with the callbacks. So I was like, you didn't. It just felt unnecessary. And I don't mind callbacks in movies. It just depends on like how much you do it, and if it just feels like you just forcing a callback in there. There was times I was like, okay, I get it. I remember that from Lord of the Rings. So it's like to me it's an enjoyable enough movie, but I just think this movie has so much potential to be more than that. So I had a decent time with this movie. It's not great. It's nowhere near the quality of the Lord of the Rings trilogy, in my opinion. It's like it. I would put this up with like the second Hobbit movie for me, where it's like I enjoyed the movie, but it's a forgettable movie to me. It's not a movie I would go back and rewatch again. And I can definitely understand why they made why this movie felt like it was made to keep the whites. Like, and I can also understand why this movie tanked and just didn't do well at the box office. Like, I just think this movie had definitely potential to be better than what it was. So that's my thoughts on Lord of the Rings: War of Warham. Until next time, movie fans.